Are you curious about what's going on with the Montgomery County, Maryland housing market? Well, today we'll look at 8 key data points that you need to know to understand what's happening with our local real estate market. So, stick around. Today is June 15th, 2022, and I'll be going through the May numbers with you today. But first, let's take a look at a couple of macroeconomic numbers. First, we'll talk about interest rates. They have moved up since my last market report. Let's take a look at this chart from the Mortgage News Daily. You can see that they sort of bumped along up and down in the middle 5% range, and then in the past 6 days, they jumped up to 6.22% in anticipation of the Fed raising their rate by 0.75%, which they did today. So that means interest rates have moved up roughly 1% since my last report. And that's largely driven by the second number we'll look at, which is inflation. The year-over-year inflation number for May came in at 8.6%, even higher than the April number. This shows that inflation had not reacted positively to the last 0.5% rate hike by the Fed, which prompted them to up the stakes this month. My name is Harry Moore, and I'm an associate real estate broker at EXP Realty, and I put together these monthly market reports to help keep you informed about what's happening in the real estate market, locally and nationally. If you like this information, I'd really appreciate it if you'd tap that like button. That'll help you, the YouTube algorithm, share this with more people. Before we dive into the local numbers, I'd like to share one more big picture item with you. This is an interesting map that I found recently in Fortune magazine. The map was created by CoreLogic. They're one of the largest real estate data sources, and it shows areas that they think are most likely to see prices fall over the coming year. As you can see, the DC metro area is light blue, which puts it in the low risk range. I'll put the link to the article in the comments below, so you can check out the interactive map for yourself. It's kind of fun. So that's a little bit of good news on the macro front. But now let's take a dive into what's happening here locally in Montgomery County, Maryland. First up, year-to-date median sales price. The year-to-date median sales price, $552,000. That's an increase of 6.6% versus 2021. So prices are continuing to move up at a steady pace in spite of the spike in interest rates and high inflation numbers we've seen this past year. With today's big move by the Fed, I'll be keeping a close eye on what happens over the next few weeks. During the month of May, the average list price to sale price ratio was 104.4%, which pulls the year-to-date number up to 103.4%. So many, but not all properties are still selling for above the asking price. Looking back, this is a slight dip from last month's 104.8, but still a very strong number. Now let's move on to the number of homes listed, or the way I like to look at it is how quickly the shelves are getting restocked in the real estate store. May is the tail end of the spring market, and historically, April or May are usually the peak months for new listings coming on the market. Then things start to taper down in June and certainly into the summer months. Here's a chart looking back for the past 5 years that shows new listings in the spring. And you can see that it's pretty consistent with the exception of the spring of 2020. This May, we saw 1,575 houses listed for sale with a median asking price of $595,000. That's a decrease from the 1,656 in April. So the normal seasonality seems to apply as far as this number goes. Not that it's a big change, but the median asking price is slightly lower than the April number, but only by $5,000. In May, there were 1,312 closed sales, and we've seen 5,170 homes listed and settled year to date. That's a 9.9% decrease versus the same time frame in 2021. So the number of sales is down, but so is inventory. And the balance between supply and demand still hasn't seen a big shift. Next, I'll remind you about the properties that failed to sell. During the month of May, 208 listings either expired, were withdrawn, or canceled. That's an increase over last month's 159 properties. I think that this is an indication that buyers are a little bit more cautious about properties that they don't really think are compelling. For the past couple of years, the art of pricing was less important because the market was so hot. But as we move back towards a slightly more balanced market, I think that that's going to change. A number of those properties that failed to sell were put back on the market, or they're sold, or they may still be active. I'll go into my broken record shtick again that even in this very active market, not every house sells. The next number that I like to watch is days on market. The median days on market for May was 6 days. That's the same as March and April's numbers. So the pace of the market doesn't seem to be slowing. Now we'll look at the number that's really driving the market, and that's inventory. Active inventory at the end of May was 917 homes. So that's up from April's number of 887, but still below last May's 1,050. Let's take a minute to look at some historical data. As you can see, the low inventory mark for the year was January with 499 listings. So inventory's moved up by 83%, which seems like a big number. But my question is, how much of that is seasonal and how much of that is caused by buyers pulling back? Again, let's look backwards. Let's go back to 2018 and 2019 for some perspective. In January to May of 2018, there was a 66% uptick in active listings. And from January to May of 2019, there was a jump of 51%. So part of this year's 83% bump up is seasonal, and part of it is the changing market. Inventory continued to move up, as we'd expect in the spring, but it seems that demand has remained strong, and we haven't seen days on market start to move up yet. Appreciation year to date held steady and actually bumped up just a little. I'll throw one more number at you, and that's the months of supply. At the end of May, it was 0.73 months of supply. So the balance between supply and demand still remains in the seller's favor for now. The market seems to be steering a pretty steady course for the moment. I'll keep watching the data and I'll let you know what I see. Although things seem to be pretty steady, the market is in flux and it requires a thoughtful, data-driven approach. So if you've been considering buying or selling real estate, you may want to check out my buyers and sellers guides. You can click on the links in the remarks below and get a copy for yourself. If you have more detailed questions, you can reach out. My contact information is below, or you can leave a comment in the remarks. If you'd like to see a recent video of a driving tour that I did of 2 neighborhoods in Kensington, you can click over here. And if you'd like to subscribe to my channel so you get updated whenever new videos come out, click over there. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.